Hello everyone, welcome to Moe'S Culture Show and Tell. And as you can see, I got my KISS flag up. Temporarily, I will be putting it back to its normal location once I'm done these. But for now, just to let you know that KISS was my first favorite band as a little kid. You know, right from the beginning, right when it was basically only this album, their first self-titled album, Kiss Kiss. Now, I remember as maybe 3 years old. I was 3 years old. My uncle Frankie brought this album into the household for the first time, and I remember loving the whole album. But when they got to Black Diamond, and at the end of Black Diamond, where it starts slowing down, as a 3-year-old kid hearing that for the first time, having no idea what you're really listening to, but knowing that it's monumental, that something about it is super cool and awesome. So when I say I was a Kiss fan, I was a Kiss fan from the beginning, right from, before I knew I was a Kiss fan. I was a Kiss fan. And it all started with this, and of course it starts off with Strutter, Nothing to Lose, Firehouse, Cold Gin, Let Me Know, Kissing Time, Deuce, Love Theme from Kiss, which is their first little instrumental, and my favorite song is 100,000 Years. I love that song, and of course Black Diamond. And Black Diamond, hearing that keep getting slower and slower is like, wow, what, you know, it blows your mind as a little kid. So Kiss became my favorite band right away. Now, now for the longest while, it was only this album. I didn't know when the next couple of albums had came out because my uncle didn't get them, and I'm a little kid. I don't know about collecting albums and that, and had no idea. But it's only later in life when I discovered these next two albums, and I'm going in chronological order of their release dates. So you get Harder Than Hell, which kind of bypassed us as a little kid. We didn't really know about this, but I wish we did, because every song on here again is pretty darn solid. So excuse me about the mic. You got to Choose, Parasite, Going Blind, Harder Than Hell, Let Me Go, Rock and Roll, All the Way, Watching You, Mainline, Coming Home, and Strange Ways. And again, I think this is a solid album. I mean, no, not quite as good as the first album, because how good is this first album? It still holds up today. I find I can put that on, and every song is solid, head bopping. You know, it's a good album. But this is just as good, I think, in some ways. But close second. But then I still really love Dress to Kill, because Dress to Kill, has some pretty awesome stuff. It has Room Service, has Two Timer, Ladies in Waiting, Getaway, Rock Bottom, which is still one of my favorite songs, Come On Love Me, which is another one of my favorite songs, Anything from My Baby, She, Love Her All I Can, and the very last track, Rock and Roll All Night and Party Every Day. Before this is just before these three albums, as good as they are, they didn't get noticed, because they were bringing people into their shows. People were going to see this band live because that's the way you needed to see them. The albums didn't do the band justice at the time. People needed to hear them in a way and see them in a way that's going to blow their minds. So that's where this next album comes in, and that's Kiss Alive. Because Kiss Alive takes all the greatest parts of the three first albums, because it starts off with Deuce, Strutter, Got to Choose, Harder Than Hell, Firehouse, Nothing to Lose, Come On Love Me, Parasite, and She. That's on side one, which is killer. But then you turn it over, then it starts with Watching You, then 100,000 Years, Black Diamond, Rock Bottom, Cold Gin, Rock and Roll All Night, which once that released the live version of Rock and Roll All Night, boom, that's when Kiss exploded and Kiss went everywhere. People were, wanted more Kiss because they finally heard the albums the way they were meant to be heard. And then it ends with Let Me Go Rock and Roll. This was the for me this was the starting of a magical journey of because as a kid it pretty much went from this, okay, knowing about this to knowing about this. Only later on, maybe about 4 or 5 years later, did I really, or 3, 4 maybe years later, in my, it's still about like 7, 8 years old, like in my formative years growing up, that these came later on. But it all started with this. It really did. I mean, this is when it really became big, and I was like, yeah, I see. That's why they're my favorite band because I loved this. This was my favorite album until I heard this. And this became my favorite album, and then every other album after that sort of became my favorite album. Then I was hooked. Now I was aware of Kiss, so I was aware of the albums. I was aware that okay, we can get multiples, and then now I had something to look forward to as a kid. The next Kiss album, and as a kid, you're a little kid. You think they're superheroes. You're seeing them on TV, you're seeing them in comic books, you're seeing them, I was reading, I remember having a magazine way back, like I was 6, 7 years old, reading a magazine, and they were saying that, oh yeah, Paul Stanley was born from a star. Gene Simmons was hatched from a demon egg. You know, Ace Frehley was a spaceman. He was like an alien, and Peter Criss was raised by cats. And you believed it. You believed it as real. It was real stuff to me as a kid. They were my first real superheroes. I mean, my love for Spider-Man and all pop culture that came after started with Kiss for me. One of the very first little records as a kid, before even Kiss came in the picture as a 2 year old, and I have memories. I'm 52 years old, but I have memories of being a 2, 3 year old kid. I have like very vivid, fond memories. I remember that having a little, I believe it was a grayish, like very light pink little record player, and I had a couple of little 45s, and the very first 45 that I ever owned, any type of piece of music that I ever owned as a kid, bought by my parents, of course, was How Much Is That Doggy in the Window? Woo, woo. And I forget what was on the other side. But yeah, that was my beginning of music right there, and you don't realize how much that sucked until you got into some Kiss. Anyway, that's going to conclude this episode. I got much more to go in the next few episodes, so, and like I said, it's my favorite band, so you're going to get like my history with the band as I'm getting older. The next episode is where like my fandom went nuts, and I was like die hard Kiss fan, like for sure. I mean, they were my favorite band, but I wasn't obsessed about them until after Kiss Alive. So see you in the next one. I have a good day, evening, night, wherever you may be. I'll see you on the flip side. Later. Be safe and take care, of course.